Alright guys, welcome back. It seems like we were on a break, but we really weren't. Okay, so in my mind, I feel like we were on a little bit of a break because I was away from the house and wanted to post more videos but couldn't. But Greedy is in town, so we are finishing the lower half of the bracket. He's got some stuff to do around town today, so while he goes and does that, I'm going to do the deck profiles of the current brackets that we are doing. There's only, there's not very many deck profiles left. I think it's like 22 deck profiles left. 22 deck profiles left to go in the tournament. And then once the tournament's over, I don't know, we'll figure out something else to do. But anyways, the deck we want to talk about today is Vileplume. Vileplume deck is a very interesting deck to build because the first question that we had when going into it was, what do we pair with it? We have this item lock, awesome, but then like we need an attacker. We need attackers that aren't like so reliant on setup. We need attackers that can punish your opponent. Like we didn't really know like which ones to go with. So you'll see in a moment what we decided to pair with it. But if in case you didn't know what Vileplume does, it locks all items. So that means stuff that would act as items in the U150. So locks trainer cards, for instance. We play a 2-2-2-1 line. Or 2-2-2 line, because both of these do the same effect as they lock items. There really isn't any difference other than that. And the reason we play this is just a higher chance of drawing into them. You play a lot of supporters and not a lot of items because you are locking items. So being able to find them quickly and easily is awesome. If you wanted to, you could go a 3-3-2 line just to increase those chances even more. But it is also reliant on you hitting that like broken time space and getting them up quickly. So the partners we had for it are all stuff that punish your opponent for having items and whatnot in their hands. So for instance, go ahead and take a look at some of them. We are going to be playing this Poltergeist Trevenant from Guardians Rising. It does 30 damage for each trainer your opponent has. So it only includes items basically because of the kind of the nerf on the wording. But still, 30 times on a non-EX is awesome. And it does allow us to play the Trevenant Break as well to get it to 160 HP. And Silent Fear is actually a very, very good attack in U150. You will note that we are playing the Psychic Ascension one. Now, we had a lot of debate on whether to play the Grass one so that you could use Forest with it, or this one for Ascension. And we figured turn 1 Ascension into Trevenant, turn 2 Silent Fear is really, really good. So that's why we decided to go with the Ascension over the Grass type for the Forest. We're also going to play a 1-1 Miss Magus line. Miss Magus does a similar thing. 30 times the number of trainers, supporters, and stadium cards your opponent has. So this is going to say just anything in your hand that's not a Pokemon or an energy, it's going to do damage for. 30 times. The only issue is that it's a Psychic and a colorless, not a DCE like Trevenant is. Speaking of DCE, we're also going to be using Noctowl. It does 20 damage for each item in both players' hands. So that's going to include yours. So you see there's 3 different ways here to kind of get that item. You're going to have a DCE with less damage and just items, 30 with just items, 30 but it's not a DCE, requires 2 energies. And you're also going to have a basic Pokemon, Poltergeist. This does not very much. It's 30 plus 10 for 2 energies, but it is a basic, it gives you type coverage, and you can actually use it with Dimension Valley because you can change yourself into Psychic. And it is a basic, so you don't have to like prep it to evolve. So those are all your attackers. The only other thing that not besides our basic support Pokemon are playing an Unknown and Unknown R just for extra draw power under Item Lock. Alright, so that does it for those Pokemon. We also have your standard 10 here. Boop-a-doop-a-doo. The 1-1 Claydol line, the backup Porygon plus the download Porygon, Spiritomb, Dunsparce, Uxie, and Lapras. You could consider playing a Porygon Z, just because Trevenant Break's gonna, the 30 spread's gonna really add up quickly, especially with Porygon Z. The problem is that you don't play Devo Spray because of your item locking, so you have to be really careful because your only outs to it are AZ and Brimies. You could play Acerola, but then you need damage on yourself. So, and Brimies actually doesn't scoop up Porygon Z because it's an EX. So, just keep that in mind if you just decide to go Porygon Z route. Once you Porygon Z, you will not be able to un-Porygon Z yourself. Now, I will go over supporters. Supporters is by far the heftiest here, because obviously you don't want a lot of items in a deck that you're locking your own items. I don't know the count on this, I probably should have looked it up, but it is the most out of any deck that plays supporters. It's the most supporters out of any deck. So I'm going to kind of group them. I know some of you have been asking for me, instead of doing alphabetical, just to group them. and it's kind of hard to like be like, oh, it's a draw supporter. That's not a draw supporter. This is this kind of draw supporter. This is. But with this deck, I felt that it was necessary. So Pokemon Search first and foremost. Let's see. We're gonna go over. Yeah, these are all the Pokemon supporter Pokemon Search you have. Now, basically, if it's a playable supporter, it's in the deck, pretty much. There's a few exceptions here and there, but these are all of the stuff. It's, search deck for a Pokemon, search deck for a Pokemon, search deck for 3 Pokemon, 2 Pokemon, evolve your Pokemon, that sort of thing. There's many more you can play. You can play stuff like Bridget, you can play stuff like Lynette's Net Search, and that sort of thing. I just think 8 is more than enough, and the reason you need some of these worse searches, like Celia's Network and Trevor, is because under item lock, if you're just looking for that one more Pokemon, this is going to get it to you. So Pokemon Search there. Also helps you get that turn 1 with Wally, or even like the turn 2. Draw cards. We're going to see N, Rockets, Amber, both the same thing there. Sages, Copycat, Judge, Professor Rowan, Lookers, Wiki, Professor Juniper, Cynthia's Feelings, Oak, Colress, Psychic's Third Eye, and Sycamore. I put the Sycamore in there. So yeah, basically just extra draw stuff. Psychic's Third Eye is really good in this deck because you're going to have a lot of dead cards in your hand most of the time. So being able to Psychic's Third Eye them away is awesome. Rowan is a very underrated supporter. We only have it just because there's better supporters, quote unquote. It kind of acts as a Shauna. You get to pick one card, leave it in your hand, and shuffle draw 4. So you end up with 5 either way. So Rowan, we gave it a little bit of a test. We have Judge, but not Desert Shaman, just because we feel like one Judge is enough. No Shauna in the list, just because this is a shuffle draw 5. This is a shuffle draw 5. This is these are both shuffle draw 4s with upside. So that's why we decided to go there. Max out on N, max out on Sycamore. Wiki is interesting. Like I said, you do clump hands with all these supporters in your hand. So Wiki actually is not actually a bad card in this deck because your hand size can be so large. Moving on with more supporters. Both Lysander and Guzma, both in the deck. Switching effects here, as well as AZ and Mr. Brimey's Compassion. Both ways to bring stuff back up or switch out your opponent's Pokemon. We're going to play Teammates, Twins, Mallow, and Oracle. All cards that are going to grab you any 2 cards, just in different ways. Mallow and Oracle will require you to have either a second supporter for the turn or that Claydol in play, or Uxie or something like that. And then Twins is you're losing, Teammates you get knocked out. Search for 2 cards. Mostly you're going to grab like part of your... If you're using it turn 2, you're going to grab part of your Vileplume line just to slow down your opponent. And then the rest of the supporters, just kind of like miscellaneous supporters. I guess I could have put Karina in the Pokemon Search line because that's mainly what you're going to be using it for. The item is only going to be like turn 1 because after that, the item you grab is not going to be worth it. That's why we don't play Skyla. But you'll notice stuff like Steven and Scott. That's so you can play 2 supporters a turn. Same with Castaway. But Scott can also grab you that Broken Time Space or that Force of Giant Plants. Brock's Grit for recovery, because you're going to need to recover at some point during the game outside of Lysander's trump card, but these should be enough throughout the game. You could add like a Palmer's Contribution if you're really worried about it. So that does it for supporters. Now you may be wondering, hey, you are light on items, so what kind of items are we playing? Well, we're playing all the items that are basically just going to try to get you to turn 1. So a lot of draw items here off the top. Pretty much all the best draw there is to offer. We don't want to play cards like Bicycle or Mail from Bill because you're going to have a lot of supporters in your hand and it's going to clump your hands up. You also don't want to play like Bicycle or Bill's Teleporter or anything, or not Bicycle, Roller Skates or Bill's Teleporter. Requires a flip, not that great in a deck that's, yeah, you want to get it like turn 1, turn 2, but you're not going for necessarily speed. So all those. Search cards / recovery, we're going to play them all. Basically just ways to search and recover, plus computer search and then breeder and rare candy. You see it's really, really bare bones. There's no Versus Seeker, there's no item finder, there's no like recovery, that sort of way. There's no Embossed or Oak's Invention because it just becomes a dead card in your hand later on. There's no Super Rod, there's no Sacred Ash, there's no Pokemon Retriever. Stuff that you see in every single deck. This is just designed to get you that turn 1, turn 2 item lock and then quit from there. So easy as that. Forgot to silence my phone. Alright, moving on. Stadiums, you're going to see Broken Time Space and Forest of Giant Plants, obviously. And then Dimension Valley, so that all your Psychic Pokemon can attack for 1 less. Pretty standard stuff there. We'll keep this on the field because there's not very many more cards. 1 Floatstone to put onto your Vileplume or your... your Vileplume once you get it out. You could play a Fluffy Berry as well if you really wanted to, but, 1 Floatstone's fine. You're playing the AZ and stuff. If it ever gets Lysandered up, they're going to spend forever trying to knock it out, and they're only going to take 1 prize. That's really the only downside of this deck, is you really don't want to get Lysandered. And then as far as Elite Four and Ace Specs, you're only playing Computer Search. That is it. You're not playing any of the Elite Four because you can't play the Elite Four under item lock. So nobody's going to clump your deck up with it. Getting those cards like turn 1, turn 2 aren't necessarily awesome. Maybe Gust of Wind something to stall or something like that, but it's only in like niche situations. So Computer Search help you get that turn 1. That's really the only Elite Four we're going to play. Moving on to Special Energy, we're going to play Double Rainbow, Double Colorless, and Upper Energy. All ways to activate Trevenant and Noctowl and that sort of thing. Double Rainbow is really, really good in this deck because all of your attacks are for pretty much 2 energies or 2 rainbows. And then Psychics, we're going to go 3, 6, 9, 12. Guarantees that you're going to draw into them. It may seem like a lot, but you can't really miss energy drops with this deck. You could consider playing up to 14, just so you're always going to draw into those energies. Stuff like Rosie's helps too, but anyways. So yeah, that does it for the deck list. If you have any questions, please let me know. If not, on